The other day, I was having a conversation with somebody about visible branding, and it was something that this person does not like. And that got me to start thinking about the visible branding that I see on a day-to-day basis in New York City. And it's hard to avoid simply because there are just so many people here and you're surrounded by people all the time. Some brands that come to mind are Kith, Supreme, Fear of God, Louis Vuitton, Gucci. Obviously, the list goes on and on and on. And that got me to start thinking about these brands and why it is that some people are drawn to them and what these brands represent to them, as well as what these brands communicate to others who see people wearing them. There's an identification thing that happens when people associate themselves with these brands. And there's also a communication thing that's happening that people who sport these brands, I think, are trying to express. So that's going to be the topic of today's video. The brands we associate ourselves with and what they say about us. And in a larger context, we'll cover the topic of branding and its sociological implications. Hey everyone, and welcome back to Peter's Prism, where we explore how great design affects our lives. Today, we're going to dive into a topic that I've been thinking a lot about lately, and that is the power of visible branding. Why we choose to align ourselves with certain designers, and what does it say about us? Why do we feel the need to wear garments that prominently display logos? And how do brands tap into our desire to belong, but also stand out at the same time? Much of it, of course, has to do with social signaling, which is tightly woven into the fabric of modern culture. So before I get started, I do want to make very clear that these are just my opinions, they're just my observations. I'm no sociologist, and I'm not taking any jabs at specific brands. I'm just calling those out that I see a lot of where I live. I respect all designers, all brands, and the customers that align themselves with them. So just wanted to put that out there. So with that out of the way, let's go. The history of visible branding and social signaling dates back thousands of years to the practice of marking livestock with unique symbols to indicate ownership, essentially using a brand as a way to visually identify who owns which animals. This practice evolved over time to encompass the concept of using recognizable symbols on goods to signify their origin and quality, allowing consumers to signal their social status by purchasing items with specific brands. In 1899, the sociologist Thorstein Veblen coined the term conspicuous consumption to explain why people spent money on luxury goods and services, as a public display of either attaining or maintaining a specific social status. Human beings are inherently social creatures. Today, not much has changed, except now we're talking about sneakers, handbags, and hoodies. Fashion brands like Kith, Supreme, Gucci, Louis Vuitton, Fear of God, they have mastered the art of visible branding. These logos and designs aren't just decoration, they are powerful social signals. A Supreme box logo tee, for example, isn't just a $100 garment, or whatever price or version we're currently talking about. It's really a statement of identity, allegiance, and status. And why does this work? Well, it taps into two universal human desires: the need to belong and the need to stand out. Belonging creates community, while standing out helps us assert individuality. And visible branding sits right at the crossroads of these two needs. Today, brands actively leverage social signaling by associating themselves with specific lifestyles, values, and identities, allowing consumers to use their purchases to convey their personal beliefs and affiliations to others. Thorstein Veblen was way ahead of his time in 1899. People are still buying luxury items to outwardly display their wealth and social status, further solidifying the link between brands and social signaling. Brands can also create a sense of community around their products where consumers feel a connection to others who share their brand loyalty. I got a real sense of this when I was at that Thom Browne event the other night at the Met. Surrounded by others who were fans of Thom Browne, suddenly felt like I was part of something larger that I was connected to. Fashion brands create communities by fostering a shared identity. Nike perhaps is the greatest example with its iconic swoosh logo. Nike doesn't just sell athletic wear or sneakers, it sells the ethos of perseverance and achievement. Their iconic "Just Do It" slogan is really a rallying cry, and their branding turns consumers into members of a global team. Aimé Leon Dore, which I'd maybe categorize as a cult brand, has a very specific aesthetic that feels a bit nostalgic. It draws inspiration from well-established brands that might not seem adjacent to one another. Ralph Lauren, Stussy. The brand goes to great lengths to articulate ALD beyond clothing, to create a story. And the idea of using your brand to create a narrative is a consistent theme across successful brands that have created loyalty among their customers. Teddy Santis, the founder of Aimé Leon Dore, once said, "When you're buying into ALD, you're buying into a world. You're buying into a perspective more than a garment." This sense of community obviously extends into high fashion. Louis Vuitton's monogram isn't just a logo, it's a badge that tells the world you're part of a community and a tradition that dates back to 1854. The result? Well, Louis Vuitton's global revenue exceeded $21 billion in 2023, cementing its status as a luxury leader. I want to take a little bit of a detour into a fascinating art/sociology project that illuminates everything that we're talking about. It's called Exactitudes, and it was created by Ari Verslaus and Ellie Uytenbroek. I hope I pronounced that correctly. Over the past 2 decades, this photographer-stylist duo has captured people in different subcultures wearing nearly identical outfits. The name Exactitudes comes from the combination of exact and attitudes, how individuals express themselves through shared codes of dress. Whether it's goths, hipsters, or streetwear enthusiasts, the project highlights how clothing communicates who we are and what groups we belong to. And here's the kicker. Exactitudes shows us that even when we think we're being totally unique, we're actually conforming to a larger trend. And I think that that's okay. Visible branding acts in much the same way. It's a shorthand. It signals values, our interests, and helps us feel like we belong without having to say a single word. When someone wears a particularly popular clothing brand, chances are it will be easily recognized. And there's good reason why this is the case. A brand's logo is like its face, a quick, memorable identifier. But recognition goes way beyond a logo. Think about Burberry's iconic check pattern, or the Tiffany blue color, or the Louis Vuitton damier check. Even without visible logos, these brand details are instantly recognizable. And they go to great lengths to establish this kind of recognizability. Cohesive brand identity is complex. It takes a lot of time, effort, and money to achieve. Logos, colors, messaging, targeted advertising, social media engagement, influencer partnerships, these are just a few of the variables that come into play in establishing brand recognition. Successful brands use all of these variables consistently, ensuring that a cohesive brand identity becomes familiar to customers and allows them to quickly identify the brand even without seeing its name outright. This kind of recognition is highly strategic. Studies show that 75% of consumers can recognize a brand by its visual identity alone, underscoring the power of consistent branding. So, how exactly have we come to associate something like a plaid check pattern from Burberry with tradition, wealth, and status? Brands pump billions of dollars into marketing and branding efforts through the channels I just described to create these associations. Through very carefully crafted marketing and advertising campaigns that are backed up by things like customer service, influencer marketing, and effective storytelling, customers start to understand the brand in a holistic sense, and if it so happens that these stories resonate, that's how big companies like Burberry, or even smaller ones like Aimé Leon Dore, create passionate, loyal fan bases. We carry the bags with the logos and pull on the sweatshirts clearly labeled because we want others to recognize us as people who have means, or that we have good taste, or that we identify with the values that a brand personifies through its storytelling. And as I mentioned before, there is nothing wrong with this. Even something as innocuous as a visibly branded Tommy Hilfiger sweatshirt, for example, says so much about the power of branding and the human need to belong while simultaneously wanting to stand out. Ultimately, visible branding and social signaling are part of the human condition. We want to connect with others, express our individuality, and yes, sometimes show off a little. That's not just vanity, it's human nature. Certain brands are intentionally positioned as luxury or high-end, allowing people to signal their wealth or exclusivity by purchasing them. Lots of people wear branded items to signal success, wealth, and taste, and there's nothing inherently wrong with that. It's just another way we communicate within society. A 2021 survey by Bain & Company revealed that millennials and Gen Z accounted for more than 60% of the global luxury market. These generations are drawn to brands not just for their quality, but for the stories they tell and the status they confer. So visible branding lets us feel like we've made it, even if what we're buying is just within the reach of affordability. From Exactitudes to the Louis Vuitton monogram, these signals help us navigate our social world. They're tools, and just like any other tool, it's how we use them that matters. So the next time you see someone sporting a Gucci belt or a Nike hoodie, remember it's not just fashion, it's communication, and there's nothing wrong with that. Thank you for indulging me in this exploration. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments. What's your take on visible branding? I'd love to hear. Stay curious, stay inspired, and I'll see you next time on Peter's Prism. Bye!